students and speaking for young people. I may not have a representative way up here in Illinois or way over here in California. Cleo speaking for me that day. When Jamie Raskin is talking about the regular order of the Constitution of the United States and the behavior of the administration, not everybody's on the floor speaking on those subject matters, but Professor Raskin is speaking for me. It's not just limited to color. It's also, it recognizes that our voices in our democracy, we ain't just sitting there waiting for our member of Congress to get up and say something. Our member of Congress may not know nothing to say. So I rely upon what he or she said over there when Jim Clyburn hit the floor for me, or when Nancy Pelosi hits the floor for me, or when some of the brilliant representatives that have been right here on KBLA Talk 1580 interviewed by Tavis Smiley, when they speak, and they speaking for us, just like when Tavis speaks on the radio. He says stuff on the radio that some radio talk show hosts don't say in Florida, but they can hear Tavis in Florida, but Tavis is speaking for me. When I used to sub for Tavis on the Tom Joyner morning show, and I was so tickled when he would call and say, man, I'm on vacation for 2 days and I can't do my editorial for the Tom Joyner morning show. Man, would you fill in for me, man? Just 2 minutes, just 2 minutes. You, J. Anthony Brown, Tavis, UJ Anthony Brown, Tom Joyner, Sybil Wilkes, just give them my 1 minute, man. And in that moment, I was from Chicago, but because it was a nationally broadcast show, the Tom Joyner morning show, man, I was honored to speak to Black America on behalf of Tavis Smiley. Very grateful. So I'm talking now about the quality of our representation, our elected representation. And so far, I've only focused on the Congress of the United States. I haven't gotten to these state legislatures because most of these state legislatures are not in the large urban capitals like Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Most of them find themselves in some Springfield, Illinois, some Sacramento, some city that's rural, where the weight, ask the Justins, Pearson and Johnson in Tennessee, where the weight of that which they fight for on the floor of their state legislatures, they speak to the crime and the violence and the gun violence in our cities. But all these farmers who need their shotguns and need their rifles to shoot raccoons and to shoot possums dominate the legislature to scare away wild animals that threaten their livestock. That's the difference. So striking the balance between respecting their way of life culturally and recognizing that high capacity and high volume magazines in urban areas simply have no place. That without sufficient gun laws to protect our streets, the same rights that they have known since before the Republic, there are rural areas where their fathers' rifles have been handed down since the Revolutionary War, 1774, 1776. I think John Wayne had 1,000 rifles, 1,000 guns. Chuck Connor had 1,000 rifles. Private collectors of guns. And while in the urban areas, we may not be private collectors of guns to the extent that they are in rural and culturally different areas, the fact of the matter is that one high-capacity magazine in our communities is as dangerous as all of the guns that they've collected for a couple of hundred years. I'm still discussing the quality of our representation. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, more on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, KBLA Talk 1580.
The biggest names.
The best conversations.
You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. 9 people were hurt in a stampede at Atlanta's Vine City MARTA station after a Beyonce concert. Witnesses say someone screamed, causing panic as an escalator sped up and stopped suddenly. Devon Ramsey says he was on the platform.
There were a lot of people that needed assistance after that.
The incident is under investigation. Democrats in Hampden, Connecticut have endorsed Legislative Council President Dominique Baez for mayor. Baez won 39 of 63 delegate votes. At least 5 other Democrats, including Jamika Jeffries, will challenge her in the September primary. And a Black former city clerk in Haines City, Florida, has won a $550,000 settlement after claiming she was told to stop wearing Aunt Jemima braids. Erica Anderson says she faced racist remarks and retaliation from the mayor, was falsely accused of misconduct, and fired after filing a whistleblower complaint. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers have finalized negotiations to acquire shooting guard Bradley Beal, a 3-time NBA All-Star. The 32-year-old Beal agreed to a contract buyout with the Phoenix Suns and plans to sign a 2-year deal with the Clippers worth $11 million. Beal had conversations with the Lakers, Miami, Milwaukee, and Minnesota before reaching a deal with the Clippers. Beal told his agent the Clippers were his first choice. If Beal is healthy, he could be a major addition to the Clippers roster. Beal missed 58 games during his 2 years in Phoenix because of back problems. When he played, he averaged 17.6 points, 4.3 assists, and shot 50%. When Major League Baseball paid tribute to Hank Aaron during last night's All-Star game in Atlanta, MLB announced plans for a $100,000 endowment for Tuskegee University, an HBCU school in Aaron's home state of Alabama. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
All I need is one mic.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Farr. At one point, James said something that caught me off guard, not because it wasn't true, but because it is. Black Altadena is gone. I know it may seem stupid and non-productive, but I stopped in that moment listening to Tavis and James. I broke down and cried. In the back of my mind, I told myself we can bring it back like it was. But James Farr's reality check hit me like a ton of bricks. My community is being murdered. I said murdered, not by the Altadena Eaton Canyon fire, but by the people we elect to protect us, and by greedy and gatekeeping nonprofits who cannot see the forest for the trees. For the first time since the fire, I truly feel and understand my wife's inconsolable pain. Because I'm struggling to find a path to recovery and at least some form of normalcy. My community is crumbling right in front of my face. Lack of funding to rebuild is slowly destroying us. Many of us can no longer hold out, and developers are gobbling up our property. When I hear voices like Tavis Smiley and James Farr speak truth to power on KBLA Talk 1580, it reminds me that we're not crazy, just unheard. Make no mistake here, KBLA delegation, this is war. And we, the people of Black Altadena, are losing. It's like waiting for reparation. Not gonna happen, brother. In this new orange man world, no one, no entity is persuaded by right or wrong. There is no consequence for doing the wrong thing and no accolades or support for doing the right thing. Will war-torn Black Altadena survive? Your guess is as good as mine. But what have I got to lose? I'm in my 70s and don't have time to wait. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once suggested that riots break out when people have no hope. But there's nothing left to burn down in Altadena. I wish I could say I remain hopeful that my beloved community will rise again like a phoenix from the ashes. I wish I could. With a KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Pasadena Community Coalition at gmail.com. Reach out to me. As always, we welcome your feedback.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Listen, that editorial that I just got finished hearing about Altadena is fantastic. And my heart goes out to the people who are struggling to keep their land. And I want to say this, that part in there where he says, listen, brother, fighting for reparations is not going to happen, brother, especially with the orange guy in the White House. Nothing truer could have been said. He's not a representative, as far as I can tell. He's not a state legislator or congressman, but he's clear in his thinking and clear in his intentionality about what is happening to us as a people all across this country. S. Todd Yeary has 1 foot in the pulpit and 1 foot in the courtroom and both feet in reality. Reverend Yeary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, where you discuss every Wednesday the politics of our faith. Thank you for joining me.
Good to be with you again, as always. There's a whole lot to talk about, right? For sure.
There certainly is. Todd, I've been talking before we go, because I know you're going to be with me for the next 90 minutes. I've been talking about the quality of our representation. That if from Baltimore, you were in a 1965 Voting Rights Act district in 1965, I mean, you could elect a Perrin Mitchell. You could elect a Kwesi Mfume. You can elect an Elijah Cummings, and you can elect a Kwesi Mfume a second time, because the people of that congressional district in Maryland understood what that district represented against the history of Black people in Baltimore. Increasingly, however, these districts are both Black, they're Hispanic, they're white. The numbers are changing. The Voting Rights Act isn't just about voting in elections. It's also about how these districts end up being shaped and the quality of our voices that emanate from these districts after these districts are shaped. Reverend Yeary, share with us or clarify for me what I'm trying to say.
A big cake, right? We're going to have to cut some slices. When you laid out kind of the history, you started with the Compromise of 1877, which kind of marks what we know to be the end of Reconstruction at that point. And there are a couple of things that came up in that compromise that began to shift some of the dynamic of this emerging political power that was coming in many of the southern states where they had relied upon enslaved persons for labor who had now been liberated and were exploring and expressing their desire to participate. And so the goal of the compromise was not just to resolve who was going to get elected that year. The aim of the compromise is we don't really have a dog in the fight. We can go with either Tilden or Hayes, provided we get particular outcomes, the removal of the remaining forces in the southern states from the north, the appointment of one Southern Democrat to the cabinet, the construction of a railroad across the South, and to help the South industrialize because the economy had been left behind. But here was the key thing when we start thinking about states' rights, state action, state autonomy, is that the states wanted the right to deal with African American citizens, Black folk, without Northern interference. Now, why is that particularly important? Because when you lay out not just the Voting Rights Act and what it allows us to do in terms of federal elections, right? But the importance of having then representation to ensure federal enforcement of federal laws that protect rights is critical.
That's right.
And what we are seeing happen is a Supreme Court, which is basically showing basically deference. They're abdicating the responsibility to make sure that there's federal enforcement around not just immigration rights, but due process more critically. When this court can say, we can send persons to other countries, we can deport them to places where they've never been and have no ties, and there's somehow no way to push back on that enforcement. Basically, we are seeing the handicapping of the process that we've relied on to make sure our rights were protected. And it's happening before our very eyes. Now, here's the tie. How did they get here? The way you get to, this, is if we're not fully engaged politically. I get it. When we're frustrated by the process, the rules, we don't necessarily like this person, that person, whatever. When we opt out of the process, here's where it gets particularly critical, is that legislative bodies make laws and pass budgets. They spend public dollars around public and, in some instances, private needs. At the same time, every 10 years, when the federal government does a census, they then take that information to decide how they're going to redraw the representative maps that allow for the people to have a voice speaking on their behalf about their issues, particularly at the federal level. And the gaming that has happened since the Voting Rights Act of 1965, the Shelby decision in 2013 that got rid of preclearance under Section 4, the recent conversation that the next target is Section 2, if we don't gut the Voting Rights Act of 1965 altogether. That's why this is so critically important. And the way you get quality candidates is you maximize your ability to participate in the process so that you help with the selection. It is not just give us whoever you want. It is, no, we have plans, expectations, needs. Which of the candidates speaks to those needs? Who then will we decide is going to represent our interests? That's the conversation that I think you're raising. And it's a critical conversation that we must have, and we got to get serious about it right now.
One of the things that I particularly find impressive when I think about Mayor Karen Bass, who maintained in Washington the exact same voice that she maintains as mayor of Los Angeles, when she pushes back against the administration, when she pushes back against ICE. This is the same voice the same quality of voice that we sent to Washington to represent that congressional district, and now she represents the city of Los Angeles. It's the same voice. So when I speak about quality of representation, I'm not talking about mealy mouth. I'm talking about someone who understands the history, who believes in the history, who knows that the road we have been on has been stony, it has been trod, and it has been filled with the blood of the slaughtered. And therefore, we have an obligation to represent the genuine and distinct and unique interests of African Americans who have made such an extraordinary contribution to the Constitution of the United States. I actually think we might be the most vocal minority, or positioned to be the most vocal minority on these questions, because of the changes to the Constitution that largely center around African American life and African American existence. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580, the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, S. Todd Yeary is our special guest.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed
on the news of the day.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least likely to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. Every girl deserves a chance to shine. That's the belief behind Forgiving for Living, Inc. Since 1999, this organization has been empowering at-risk girls ages 13 to 18, helping them overcome behavioral and mental health challenges. Founder Wendy Gladney's personal journey inspired the mission to give girls hope and purpose through the power of forgiveness. Through givingforliving.org to donate, volunteer, become a mentor, or find help for a young girl in need. Futures for young girls. Visit forgivingforliving.org today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome aboard to Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. My very special guest is our regular contributor on Wednesdays, Dr. S. Todd Yeary, both PhD, JD, lawyer, and preacher, theologian, seminary professor, as well as law school professor. Dr. Yuri, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Always good to be with you. These are serious times. Let's talk about it.
Dr. Yuri, normally after the census, the decennial, I think it's decennial census, and every year, every 10 years, 2 years after that, we have redistricting in the state legislatures. The state of Texas has now called for, under Donald Trump's leadership and Governor Abbott's leadership, the reconsideration by the federal courts of 4 African-American congressional districts in the state of Texas, suggesting that their lines constitute an illegal racial gerrymander that discriminates against white voters. And therefore, they seek to have these 4 seats redrawn or eliminated in the state of Texas because of his fear and concern that Republicans could regain control of the Congress. Governor Newsom of California has now threatened, should Texas take that course, to redraw lines within the state of California to offset what losses Democrats may lose if, in fact, the Supreme Court uses or is successful in their challenge. Obviously, African Americans, people of color, are caught in the middle of that, and we could be looking at 0 seats in Congress if we keep up this behavior across the United States. Your thoughts on challenges to the Voting Rights Act that could come even before the primaries in 2026?
Well, that's part of the design. Remember, the way that folks in power protect themselves is they create a process that kind of insulates them from dissent and removal. What we are seeing in 2020, the president wanted 11,780 votes. In 2025, he wants 5 congressional seats. And the mechanism that will be used is nothing less than the executive's purview to call a special session of the legislature to deal with that particular issue. Whether or not they come away with anything that satisfies the governor's desires and the president's aims remains to be seen. Certainly, there's going to be litigation on the back end. But I think the reason we will see more of this kind of creative manipulation of the political process is because we've kind of abandoned the notion of coalition building. We've been pigeonholed into thinking that politically we behave one way with only one view of the political reality. And therefore, where there are clusters of Black and brown people, it is easier to kind of divide them up and rely upon their, self-selecting that they won't participate because of frustration, and basically concede not just the Congress, the House on one side, right? It's important. All revenue focused bills originate in the House of Representatives. The Senate, advice and consent, particularly around federal judges when they're trying to remake the federal judiciary and insulate the Supreme Court for at least a generation to preserve and protect the erosion of some of the seminal decisions that were part of the modern civil rights movement. The next target after the Voting Rights Act is going to be Brown versus Board of Education. The signal has been sent by Justice Thomas. It is what has led to a lot of the public accommodations interpretation of civil rights law. And so we've got to work through this whole process of how do we, in the meantime, while they're doing what they're doing, we've got to be ramping up and getting ready to do what we need to do in terms of the next election. So that's the whole focus. When we talk about how these things are happening, one is by design, but the other is by consent. And the consent of the governed is not just those who choose to participate, but those who choose not to participate, who are basically saying, we're okay with whatever the outcome is, whatever the harm might be. And this whole notion of carving up Texas and trying to offset in California. The best buffer for all of that gaming is everybody shows up at the poll when it's time to show up at the poll, and it doesn't matter whether it's for a local election, state election. It could be for particularly judicial retention elections at the state level, since 97% of our interaction with the criminal legal system is under state law. I mean, we've got to be more intentional in understanding just how focused and persistent the other side is to erode all of the progress that's been made over the last century and a half.
Dr. Uri, I just don't feel that the liberal infrastructure in Washington, D.C. ever really takes the issues behind the Voting Rights Act and these lines as seriously as those of us who need our voices protected in the Congress and in these state legislatures. Now, they have no problem walking out and standing behind John Lewis. God bless him. John Lewis's legislation. John Lewis is a certain kind of license that says, I'm okay on civil rights. I'm for John Lewis. But then it pretty much stops there. The same people in the Congress of the United States insist that safe members of Congress in safe congressional districts, albeit African American, Hispanics, and a few liberals, need to contribute massive amounts of money, raise massive amounts of money to elect conservative, blue dog, yellow dog type Democrats to Congress, because we need to understand that they have to run in MAGA areas and MAGA territories. And when they come to Washington, no, they do not vote for Juneteenth. No, they do not vote for health care for all. No, they do not vote for adequate funding or equal high quality funding for public education. They do vote for vouchers, and some of them are extremely they simply vote essentially for the Speaker of the House to be a Democrat, but then they spend most of their careers in Congress kind of straddling the fence between their MAGA base and their core base in the Black community. I found that particularly troubling to the point of nausea at times in the Congress.
Yeah, I mean, it's nauseating, but I think there's also another thread in there that we've got to take a serious look at. It's not enough to vote for candidates. We also have to run our own. And if you're going to run candidates in this political process and climate, you've got to be willing to support candidates with dollars to be able to run a credible campaign. And so if we're not going to build the pipeline, you mentioned the succession of all of those stalwart names that were part of the early days of the Congressional Black Caucus, the Barbara Jordans, the Shirley Chisholms, on and on, right? When we call those names, they weren't supposed to just be the onlys of their era. They were meant to be the first. That's why we have to continue to engage in not just political discourse, not just conversation, but political participation. That's action. And that means then that we've got to show up. And the way we show up is we've got a choice to make, right? It's a largely two-party system. I think that one of the things that we've got to figure out is how do we read the Kerner Commission report that was really, really clear about understanding how Black power at its best really worked. And that was demonstrating the ability to swing the outcome of an election. Now, if they're changing congressional districts, then that means that our strategy is going to largely be statewide. If they're going to water down and dilute our participation in congressional districts and make it more micro-focused at a local level, if that, then we've got to figure out whoever's going to sit in let's start with small executive exercises. How many governors are on the ballot next year? How many executives that promote state budgets and appoint state judges and make state policy decisions? How many of them are we going to be ready to support, even as we are also focused on the midterm? We've got to be a comprehensively focused and committed voting bloc. And it's not just for a party, it is for the policies that align with who we are, what we need, and we do it by building coalitions around shared values and shared outcomes.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We'll be back after we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. 9 people were hurt in a stampede at Atlanta's Vine City MARTA station after a Beyonce concert. Witnesses say someone screamed, causing panic as an escalator sped up and stopped suddenly. Devon Ramsey says he was on the platform.
There were a lot of people that needed assistance after that.
The incident is under investigation. Democrats in Hampden, Connecticut have endorsed Legislative Council President Dominique Baez for mayor. Baez won 39 of 63 delegate votes. At least 5 other Democrats, including Jamika Jeffries, will challenge her in the September primary. And a Black former city clerk in Haines City, Florida, has won a $550,000 settlement after claiming she was told to stop wearing Aunt Jemima braids. Erica Anderson says she faced racist remarks and retaliation from the mayor, was falsely accused of misconduct, and fired after filing a whistleblower complaint. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers have finalized negotiations to acquire shooting guard Bradley Beal, a 3-time NBA All-Star. The 32-year-old Beal agreed to a contract buyout with the Phoenix Suns and plans to sign a 2-year deal with the Clippers worth $11 million. Beal had conversations with the Lakers, Miami, Milwaukee, and Minnesota before reaching a deal with the Clippers. Beal told his agent the Clippers were his first choice. If Beal is healthy, he could be a major addition to the Clippers roster. Beal missed 58 games during his 2 years in Phoenix because of back problems. When he played, he averaged 17.6 points, 4.3 assists, and shot 50%. When Major League Baseball paid tribute to Hank Aaron during last night's All-Star game in Atlanta, MLB announced plans for a $100,000 endowment for Tuskegee University, an HBCU school in Aaron's home state of Alabama. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah. At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time. Whenever news breaks, while we're on the air, it's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580. And we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. And I thank you, thank you.
I'm Jesse Jackson. Welcome forward to Jesse Jackson Show. KBLA Talk 1580. I am getting a little bit of an echo. Our guest in this particular hour has been Dr. S. Todd Yeary, and our guest will be none other than Wilmer Leon in just a moment. Todd, I do want to wrap with you in this very brief segment on the Voting Rights Act and the consequences and the significance of diluted representation. Every black person. I've heard Tavis say it, and I've heard others say it. All skin folk ain't kin folk. We keep electing black folks, but we get fewer and fewer blacks in public office making sense, not speaking to the genuine and authentic needs of black people. And we deserve representation in every level of government, period.
Yeah, that you're talking, two things come to mind. One, there's a saying, you can't teach what you don't know, and you can't lead where you don't go. That's number one. It's not just having black leadership, where are we finding and cultivating them? So that's part of it. The other thing that comes to mind is what your father often says to us: you don't get what you deserve, you get what you demand or negotiate. And so there's got to be clarity around what are we expecting, and that has to come with really an ask. The reason you have elected representatives who go to these different places, whether it's city hall, the state house, if they go to the halls of Congress, they are there to engage in the process of not only making law. That was one of the big drivers why I ended up going to law school late in life, because I had been the state lobbyist for the NAACP, and we always went to Annapolis with the right intentions. We were framing the right issues. We always came out either with bad legislation or none at all. And so part of it was to understand the process. How is the sausage made? What does that process look like? And how do we engage in such a way that when there is the back and the forth, the negotiating to figure out how do you get to terms that allow a bill to come up on third reader, then you have to then know what it is that you want as an outcome. If we just want folks to go and represent our interests, that sounds good, but what's your interest? And if we aren't able to articulate it, what do we need? What do we want? What do we demand? And then have a conversation around how do we get it? It can't just be this touchy feely, I need somebody to go represent me. All right, represent you to do what? What is it that you need representation for? What are your concerns? And we've got to have a real serious civic conversation within our own communities to be able to find our voice and be able to talk about the conditions of our people without trying to use catchphrases and cliches. Be very
Todd,
concrete so you can make the demand.
Todd, I want to say this because most recently the mayor of the city of Chicago gave a speech, and he was talking about, with great pride, the number of African Americans that he'd hired and contracts that he had given. And if he didn't say that speech and got a standing, of course he said that speech, got a standing ovation, well received by the people. And the next morning he had a federal investigation for saying it. Now, when Harold was mayor, of course you could say the exact same thing. When you think about Washington, D.C., I've known just about every mayor in the District of Columbia. But, when it was Chocolate City, Marion Barry, that was a different kind of representation because it was us. When we think about Maynard Jackson in Atlanta, when it was, mostly us, we built the airport, we ran the airport, we benefit from the contracts of the airport. And I'm not saying that any other mayor after Maynard has been less than. I'm just simply saying that the more gentrified the cities become, it affects the quality of the representation. And that some of the demands that we make have to recognize the political reality that, he gets a little votes from this side of town, this side of the town, and this side of town, and everybody is now participating. When it was an all-black city, we demanded our fair share. When it became a non-all-black city, we started arguing and fighting for diversity, equity, and inclusion. It had to have some of this and some of that, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and the representation itself changed. That's just, in my opinion, a fact. Now, maybe I'm getting old at 60, but I kind of remember that dynamic.
I don't know if you're getting old at 60. I think it speaks to a need for us to stay current with our political strategy. The plan has never been to allow for a concentrated confident demographic of Black voters to help drive the overall national agenda. That just has never been part of the plan. To think that somehow or other, with the advent of some key civil rights victories at the Supreme Court, that that is going to kind of change what the objective is, totally misses the read of history. The reason we have the assault on the Voting Rights Act is because they don't like the notion that you have more Black elected members of Congress than you ever have. We can talk about their levels of effectiveness and what their districts actually look like. I think the bigger conversation that we've got to have is, are we participating at the level of our maximal impact, not maybe what somebody else's turnout, well, our turnout is better than their turnout. That's not the reference point. The reference point is, are we utilizing every able-bodied person to get into this process?
When we come forward, Dr. Wilmer Leon will join our conversation on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed
On the news of the day.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey, Mom, I've been meaning to talk to you about some new COVID information I saw online. I read that Black folks like us with certain conditions like diabetes, heart disease, mental health conditions, or being 50 and older, like you, are at high risk.
Boy, you sound like a commercial.
I'm just saying. I know you love your ginger teas and essential oils, but remember, there are treatment options for COVID-19.
I promise if I get sick again, I'll call my doctor to ask about my options.
Visit WeTalkWeRise.com to learn more. Brought to you by Pfizer.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time. Whenever news breaks, while we're on the air, it's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580. And we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. So let's just get one of everything.
Everything? Fire everything. The Capital One Saver card is at table 27 and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, Chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Looking forward to Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest in this hour is Dr. Wilmer Leon III, who's a political scientist whose primary areas of expertise are Black politics, American government, and public policy. For 11 years, he was the lecturer, teaching associate in the political science department of Howard University in Washington, D.C. Currently, Dr. Leon is a nationally broadcast radio talk show host on Sirius XM satellite radio, channel 126, nationally syndicated columnist and regular political commentator on national and international news programs. Dr. Leon is a regular contributor on truthout.org, theroot.com, politicsincolor.com, blackstarnews.com, Black Agenda Report, Black Politics on the Web. He can also be seen as a regular contributor on TV One's News on Now with Roland Martin, Press TV, and RT TV. Dr. Leon, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Well, thank you very much. And just let me just quickly set the record straight, because, you know, Roland no longer has that show. I'm still on RT. But of course, that News One show is now. I don't want people looking for a show that no longer exists.
I appreciate that. One of these days, I'm going to get your bio correct. I think I copy it from previous shows and bring it forward.
Not a
but
problem.
I will fix that next time.
Not a
Dr.
problem.
Leon, we're also joined in this hour, The Politics of Our Faith. Attorney S. Todd Yeary is both a lawyer and a pastor who preaches in a church in Baltimore, Maryland, but he's also a full-time lawyer who practices in the courtroom. Dr. Leon, we have been talking. I want to make this introduction first. Dr. Leon, this is Dr. Yeary. Dr. Yeary, this is Dr. Leon.
We know each other. We've been hanging out in some discussions a time or two. So this is going to be good. I'm here for all of it.
Dr. Leon, we've been talking about the quality of our representation. All skin folk ain't kinfolk.
Mm-hmm.
And recently, the governor of the state of Texas, along with Donald Trump, have come up with some kind of scheme to suggest that the 4 African-American congressional districts in the state of Texas are an illegal racial gerrymander. And to protect his interests before the midterm, he is searching for states to challenge whose congressional districts were drawn to give African-Americans an equal opportunity of getting elected are fundamentally being challenged. And I want to invite you in on that conversation because with all of this talk of resistance to what the MAGA movement has done, if in fact we don't show up in great numbers to strengthen the Voting Rights Act, to push back on these efforts to dilute our representation, the end of Second Reconstruction could look very closely like the end of First Reconstruction, which was no blacks in Congress at all. Dr. Leon?
Well, I was listening to the earlier conversation, and you all are absolutely right. And Attorney Yeary's point about one of the comments that your father makes quite often is relative to you don't get what you demand, or you don't get what you deserve. You get what you demand. And so the that just takes me to the question of what are we demanding, and what is the party that we overwhelmingly support representing on our behalf. And I use the word representing because they then become, based upon our support, they become our elected representatives. And what I have been witnessing and studying and observing for too many years is the Democrats come to us begging for our support. They can't win without us. But where's the tangible legislation that is supposed to be the outcome or output from that support? And what it really comes down to is they don't want to appear to be a party that is too black. And so to what is transpiring in Texas, where's the outrage from the Congressional Black Caucus? Where's the outrage from the NAACP? Where's the outrage from the Urban League? And I understand Urban League is more of a business organization than a political organization, but to me now you can't exist in this world operating in a silo or in a vacuum. And so I strongly suggest folks go back and look at this piece that was written by Ralph Nader a while ago, where he tracks the percentage, or he does the research on how much money AIPAC is putting into the political coffers of black political representatives. How much money does Hakeem Jeffries get from AIPAC? How much money did the former vice president get from AIPAC? And when you start looking at those dollars, and then you ask yourself, well, how can those individuals, how can Kamala Harris go to CARICOM and back the U.S. invasion of Haiti? How can Hakeem Jeffries go to CARICOM and back the U.S. invasion of Haiti? How can Hakeem Jeffries back genocide in Gaza? How can the vice president and the Democratic National Committee not allow Palestinian voices to speak very clearly at the DNC in Chicago in 2024. I was there. I spoke to the credentialed Palestinians that were not allowed into the meeting and not allowed to speak. There's and look, I'm not making this stuff up. Go to Politico. AIPAC corks $100 million war chest to sink progressive candidates. This is from March of 2024. You can go to the AP. Pro-Israel super PAC helped defeat one squad member. Now it's going after another, Corey Bush. That's from the AP in August of 2024. So to those that want to throw some foolish anti-Semitic label around in this guy, no, go read the articles and you will see very clearly why so many of our so-called representatives are conspicuously silent when it comes to representing our interests, because they're being paid to be quiet.
Reverend Yuri?
So the representation question is the issue. That's why I think it's not just this is not some amorphous artificial process. Our political engagement has to be intentional, as it is in other communities, with the expectation that whatever their demands are, they're going to lay those demands at the feet of whomever is actually in the position. But because we're not really clear on what we're demanding, we have these kind of symbolic catchphrases. I want justice. I do too, but what do you mean by you want justice? Are we talking economic justice? What does that look like? Does that look like we need access to capital, where in poor communities and urban enclaves, the banking system is largely liquor stores and check cashing outfits? Do we need to make sure that access to capital has underwriting that is not arbitrary by whatever the banks decide they want their underwriting to be? We've got to be more concrete in what it is we're demanding so that we can be more clear when we send representatives to go represent us, so that they don't come back saying, well, you said you wanted justice, but you didn't really say what you meant. No, be real clear. When Mama said, go to the Piggly Wiggly and bring me whatever it was, you better not come back with anything other than what I sent you there to go get me.
And to that point, in too many instances, we're continuing to try to reinvent the wheel, because a lot of the demands that Attorney Yuri is speaking to, folks, all we have to do is go back to the Gary Convention and read the Gary Declaration, and that thing wasn't written in 1790. It was written in 1970 or 72. And unfortunately, so many of the realities that were articulated in that document are realities, and we find ourselves in many instances in worse circumstances today than we did then. And another quick point is that when you Attorney Yuri is correct about what are we protesting for, because there was a time and Jesse, your father again can speak very clearly to this. There was a three-pronged approach. There was the activity in the street, there was the activity in the court, there was the activity in the legislature. Those three things worked in concert. So we were not only protesting for something, there was also a process behind that protest, so that when the protest was over, there were other actions, there was other momentum that was taking place in other spaces. Now, in too many instances, there is something to protest for or protest against, but unfortunately, those other two prongs of the approach are not coordinated in the process, so that when the protest is over, and the voices are silent, the issues just seem to fall by the wayside.
You know, I want to throw this out there. I share with my Jewish brothers and sisters all the time that we both believe in one God. And I revere the Exodus story. Let my people go. Moses speaking to Pharaoh. But I want my Exodus story revered too. And that is a process that allowed 2 states to be admitted to the Union, 2 more stars on the American flag of Miss Betsy Ross. It is a process where 11 states decided to no longer be part of the Union, and a process that included a civil war to put them back in the Union and put their stars back on the flag. An Emancipation Proclamation, a 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, a 19th Amendment, a 26th Amendment, a Voting Rights Act of 1965, obviously a Civil Rights Act of 1964, subsequent public accommodations legislation. This is my Exodus story. There's a difference between let my people go and ending constitutional, legislative, and executive order slavery. Same God. And I believe that the same God that paid attention to the details in the book of Exodus paid attention to the reality that confronts African Americans in this country then and in this country now. And so when you interfere in my Exodus story to shape the context and the quality of our representation, I'm deeply concerned about that. Or there is no understanding whatsoever of our mutual story that emanates from the same context that the God we serve finds slavery in whatever form it presents itself in abhorrent. Dr. Yuri?
Well, there are a couple of things. Since you raised the Exodus story, let's be real clear. The directive that God gave to Moses was go tell Pharaoh. Don't ask him. Don't suggest to him. Don't ask what he thinks. Don't see whether or not he'll agree with it. Go make the demand. The response was, well, what if he won't listen to me? God says to Moses, what's in your hand? He says, a staff. Throw it down. He throws it down, it turns into a serpent. God says, pick it up. He picks it up, it turns back into a staff. When he gets in the presence of Pharaoh and the crew, they challenge him. He throws his staff down. They throw their staffs down. Their staffs turn into snakes. But though he was outnumbered, he was not outpowered. See, we keep associating numerical distinctions as the only determinant for who actually has the power. And because we're not using the power that we already have and the authority that we've been given to go make the demand, as Dr. Leon has been saying, listen, at the end of the day, silence makes us complicit. And if that silence is in our action or in our words, then we've got a problem. And I agree with Dr. Leon. We should have a full-throated strategy right now. What's our legislation strategy, local, state, and federal? Not just what's happening on Capitol Hill, what's happening down at City Hall. We also have to have a litigation strategy. Where is the fund that's going to help us to run these cases, to file these documents, to find these plaintiffs that are going to lead in this litigation wherever we have to file it? And we also have to have demonstration. We got to be willing to agitate in the streets, because if we give up any of the 3 prongs, we no longer have a fork and we're going to starve.
You know, we need to ask our elected representatives, why are you afraid to fight? What? You know, I think the 3 of us remember the one time we came home crying and your mother or your father said, what happened? So-and-so beat me up. Well, let me tell you what, you better go back out there and kick some behind, because if you don't, you're going to get it kicked here. You got to go out and fight. So when you've got Gregory Meeks or Hakeem Jefferson, well, what do you want us to do? They control the Senate, they control the House, and they control I want you to go out and fight somebody. You're a representative. I want you to represent. That's what I want you to do, win or lose. I want you to represent, because if you're playing the long game, And that's part of the question. Are you playing the short game or are you playing the long game? And too many of them are playing the short game with incredibly short money. They're hustling backwards. And we're allowing them to do that.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guests are S. Todd Urey and Dr. Wilmer Leon III when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Misty Jordan with BIN News Now. Several people are recovering after an apparent stampede onto an escalator following the Beyonce concert in Atlanta Monday. Devon Ramsey said he was on the platform of the MARTA station when he heard someone screaming, causing people to rush the escalator that suddenly sped up and stopped.
There was a lady laying on the ground with her young daughter. There were a lot of people that needed assistance after that.
MARTA said several people were treated for cuts and scrapes at a hospital. One was treated for a broken ankle. A new report finds the state of Mississippi is leading the nation in mortgage application rejections for Black people. The 2022 Lending Tree report showed that the mortgage denial rate for Black applicants in the Jackson area were 34.2% compared to 12.5% for the overall population. And National Black Restaurant Week is underway. A full list of participating restaurants is available online at blackrestaurantweeks.com. I'm Misty Jordan. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Clippers have finalized negotiations to acquire shooting guard Bradley Beal, a three-time NBA All-Star. The 32-year-old Beal agreed to a contract buyout with the Phoenix Suns and plans to sign a 2-year deal with the Clippers worth $11 million. Beal had conversations with the Lakers, Miami, Milwaukee, and Minnesota before reaching a deal with the Clippers. Beal told his agent the Clippers were his first choice. If Beal is healthy, he could be a major addition to the Clippers roster. Beal missed 58 games during his 2 years in Phoenix because of back problems. When he played, he averaged 17.6 points, 4.3 assists, and shot 50%. When Major League Baseball paid tribute to Hank Aaron during last night's All-Star game in Atlanta, MLB announced plans for a $100,000 endowment for Tuskegee University, an HBCU school in Aaron's home state of Alabama. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley show conversation with James Farr. At one point, James said something that caught me off guard, not because it wasn't true, but because it is. Black Altadena is gone. I know it may seem stupid and non-productive, but I stopped in that moment listening to Tavis and James. I broke down and cried. In the back of my mind, I told myself we can bring it back like it was. But James Farr's reality check hit me like a ton of bricks. My community is being murdered. I said murdered, not by the Altadena Eaton Canyon fire, but by the people we elect to protect us, and by greedy and gatekeeping nonprofits who cannot see the forest for the trees. For the first time since the fire, I truly feel and understand my wife's inconsolable pain. Because I'm struggling to find a path to recovery and at least some form of normalcy. My community is crumbling right in front of my face. Lack of funding to rebuild is slowly destroying us. Many of us can no longer hold out, and developers are gobbling up our property. When I hear voices like Tavis Smiley and James Farr speak truth to power on KBLA Talk 1580, it reminds me that we're not crazy, just unheard. Make no mistake here, KBLA delegation, this is war, and we the people of Black Altadena are losing. It's like waiting for reparation. Not gonna happen, brother. In this new orange man world, no one, no entity is persuaded by right or wrong. There is no consequence for doing the wrong thing and no accolades or support for doing the right thing. Will war-torn Black Altadena survive? Your guess is as good as mine. But what have I got to lose? I'm in my 70s and don't have time to wait. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once suggested that riots break out when people have no hope. But there's nothing left to burn down in Altadena. I wish I could say I remain hopeful that my beloved community will rise again like a phoenix from the ashes. I wish I could. With a KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Pasadena Community Coalition at gmail.com. Reach out to me. As always, we welcome your feedback.
This is GBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., inviting you to join me weekdays at 12 noon, right after Tavis Smiley, here on KBLA Talk 1580. As a law school graduate and a theologian with a firm grasp of our body politic given almost 2 decades in Congress, my show is the fresh new home of an authentic, uncompromised quest for transformation and salvation, both personal and collectively, as I vigorously interrogate the theological and symbolic meanings embedded in our society. I promise to leverage my knowledge of history, theology, and both international and domestic issues to imagine an inclusive vision for the future, which I hope will inspire all of us to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as a given, not just an aspiration. So join me weekdays at 12 noon, right after Tavis Smiley, for 2 hours of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hello, this is Dr. Rosa Milligan, self-appointed mayor of South Central LA. Attention business owners, protect your family now. Your business should never bankrupt your family. Form an LLC now. Register for my Zoom seminar at mytechacademy.net or call 213-878-4742.
In today's Sue Happy society, one lawsuit could wipe out your home, money, investments, even the inheritance meant for your grandchildren. But there's good news. An LLC protects your personal assets and your legacy. It's the shield every smart business owner needs. Register now for Dr. Rosie's powerful seminar at mytechacademy.net or call directly at 213-878-4742.
As an experienced business consultant, I will help you set it up right the first time. Visit mytechacademy.net. Call me 213-878-4742. Protect your family. Secure your legacy. Form your LLC today.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest on this Politics of Our Faith, Reverend Dr. S. Todd Yeary, Esquire, a gentleman who has 1 foot in the pulpit and 1 foot in the courtroom, but both feet in reality. And joining us is Wilmer Leon, PhD, a political scientist who earned a BS degree in political science from Hampton Institute, a master's in public administration from Howard University, and a PhD in political science from Howard University. He was a contributing author to Democratic Destiny and the District of Columbia, Lexington Books, 2010. His latest book is Politics, Another Perspective, Commentary and Analysis on Race, War, Ethics, and American Political Landscape. He's a 2016 Author House. Dr. Leon, I slaughtered your introduction the first time, and I want to know how we can continue to hear your work.
Well, no, you didn't slaughter my introduction. You got my name right. So, so it's all good. So I have a podcast called Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon that folks can get every day, Monday through Friday, 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. And then on Saturdays from 11 to 2, I'm on Sirius XM 126. Inside the Issues is where you go for that on 126 Sirius XM, or just go to wilmerleon.com. And all the information you need will be right there at wilmerleon.com.
We're grateful to have you on our show. My producer, Miss Towns, wanted me to pick up on the subject we were having just before we came forward. And that was on a statement Dr. Leon made about the hustle. Let's talk for a minute about this hustle that's taking place on Capitol Hill, this constant pursuit of money that changes our voice and our representation. Dr. Leon?
Well, I think the point I was making was that our so-called elected representatives are hustling backwards, because they seem to be in pursuit of beyond the paycheck and the contributions that they get from interests outside of our community. They're not doing what we sent them there to do. And we sent them there to represent us. That's why the lower body is called the House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm.
And they're supposed to represent our interests. But we historically have been told, you got to be patient. Now's not the time. You got to be quiet. We don't want to upset we've been given all the excuses. And I strongly suggest folks go back if they can and read. Ossie Davis was the keynote speaker at the first Congressional Black Caucus dinner in 1972.
Wow.
And the title of his presentation was, "It's not the man, it's the plan." And he was calling upon the Congressional Black Caucus to create a plan.
And he also said, it's not the rap, it's not the rap, it's the map.
Absolutely.
He said that in the same speech. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And he closes by saying, and I'll paraphrase, if tragedy should befall us, after the dust settles, when one brother crawls out of the devastation and turns to another, and he should be able to say, "Hey man, what's the plan?" And we have no plan.
Dr. Yuri?
That's the whole issue, right? We know all of the sayings. You fail to plan, you plan to fail. We got all that, right? I think we are so hamstrung about talking about the political realities in spaces and places that matter to us, that making a plan is probably the least of our problems right now. A bigger problem is kind of answering the proverbial question that late brother Marvin Gaye would ask, what's going on? I don't think folks have a clue of what they're really looking at, that this plan is so far down the line that if we don't get mobilized quickly, they have mobilized the courts. They've now hijacked the co-equal branches of government, where the judiciary is deferring to the executive, and the legislature is doing the executive's bidding. The executive has figured out that if he chooses not to adhere to a judicial edict, that how is the judiciary going to enforce it? Because the enforcement mechanism is actually part of the executive function. And so because he's just kind of turned everything on its head, you are actually seeing the mutiny happen in real time. And if we don't get real clear that the reason you're having a redrawing of a map in Texas now is for no other reason than the president said so. And so he's going to say more stuff that runs counter. And to Dr. Leon's earlier point, if we don't recognize that we don't need one of three or two of three, we need all three and probably a fourth. You don't get legislation without participation. If we don't get back and recognize that, as the Kerner report pointed out, the reason you had success in places like Nashville and Atlanta and Durham and on and on and on was because, in addition to the demonstration you had the participation that could change the outcome of an election. If we don't start sending some folks home, we need a throw the bums out campaign that says if you're not going to advance the interest of our community, and there's never been a pro-Black agenda that did harm to anybody else, period, full stop. You're not going to be hurt by justice that promotes equity and fairness and restitution for harm that's been done, for the economic devastation that's been imposed on communities, and on bad math. If the government can give away 160 acres of public lands to qualified white folk, go back and find the 40 acres and the mule that you should have given to our folk. Let's go back and figure it out. Let's have that conversation, and let's not be afraid to have it, because they're not afraid to talk about what they're talking about. That's for doggone sure.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, maybe a final question, but certainly some closing thoughts, a word of hope from Dr. Leon, and a word of hope from Reverend Dr. S. Todd Yeary when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
You have cancer. The 3 words no one wants to hear. Of the cancers that impact our community, lung cancer is the most dangerous. More people succumb to lung cancer than colon, breast, and prostate combined. Black men are 12% more likely to develop lung cancer, and cases for Black women are rising. Early detection and comprehensive treatment is the best way to beat this dreaded disease. Providence is a research leader in multi-cancer early detection, offering blood tests that identify fast-spreading cancers that don't show symptoms in early stages. The Providence Los Angeles Integrated Network Cancer Program determines best protocols for each patient, interacting with specialists who share experiences, perspectives, and new findings specific to each case. With over 1,000 board-certified physicians, including top oncologists, surgeons, radiologists, and nurse specialists, Providence delivers whole-person care that understands your culture, values, preferences, and priorities. So, if you hear the words, "you have cancer," all you need is faith and providence.org/cancer.
See website for details. Bills Happen is not a lender and does not make credit decisions. Hey, bills happen. So when you need extra cash fast, go to billshappen.com. Have you been turned down? Are your credit cards maxed out? Do you have bad credit? Go to billshappen.com. All you need is a job and a checking account. You can find a lender and get up to $5,000 cash as early as tomorrow at billshappen.com. Billshappen.com is the smart way to get a personal lender now. So if you need extra money for car repairs, medical bills, family emergencies, whatever you need cash for, go to billshappen.com and you can get the money you need as soon as the next day, up to $5,000. At billshappen.com, our process is safe, secure, and all online. No one to deal with in person. And Bills Happen does not charge you any fees to use our service. It's easy. When you need a lender, just remember, when bills happen, go to billshappen.com. Billshappen.com for the cash you need now. Billshappen.com.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we aim to foster enlightening, sustainable, restorative dialogue, and we welcome unapologetically progressive viewpoints that empower fellow citizens. We are now accepting submissions for KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorials like this one.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 guest editorial, I'm Martin Gordon, chair of the Pasadena Community Coalition. Recently, I listened to a Tavis Smiley Show conversation with James Farr. James said something that caught me off guard. Black Altadena is gone. My community is being murdered. I said murdered.
All you have to do is go to our website homepage at kbla1580.com and click on the icon that says KBLA Guest Editorials to learn more about our editorial standards and content submission guidelines. As long as the topic aligns with our mission, we are happy to review your submission and consider it for broadcast. We can't make any promises, but we want to amplify progressive perspectives that are community-focused and solution-oriented. So go to KBLA1580.com right now to download all the information you need about our guest editorials. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
See website for details. Bills Happen is not a lender and does not make credit decisions. Hey, bills happen. So when you need extra cash fast, go to billshappen.com. Have you been turned down? Are your credit cards maxed out? Do you have bad credit? Go to billshappen.com. All you need is a job and a checking account. You can find a lender and get up to $5,000 cash as early as tomorrow at billshappen.com. Billshappen.com is the smart way to get a personal lender now. So if you need extra money for car repairs, medical bills, family emergencies, whatever you need cash for, go to billshappen.com and you can get the money you need as soon as the next day, up to $5,000. At billshappen.com, our process is safe, secure, and all online. No one to deal with in person. And Bills Happen does not charge you any fees to use our service. It's easy. When you need a lender, just remember, when bills happen, go to billshappen.com. Billshappen.com for the cash you need now. Billshappen.com.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Looking forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. My very special guest on every Wednesday discussing the politics of our faith is Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary. Dr. Yeary is both a pastor and he is also a lawyer. He is a theologian. He is also a serious-minded activist who I'm very proud to call my friend. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I can't begin to tell you just how much life you bring to our show on Wednesdays.
Man, you give me a whole lot of life just being able to hang out. And then you got Dr. Leon just doing all kinds of things. So ain't no telling what's going to happen after the show's over. Let's see.
Our very special guest is also Dr. Wilmer Leon. Dr. Leon is a political scientist of Black politics, American government, and public policy, a lecturer, a teaching associate in the political department of Howard University. He's the host of Inside the Issues on Sirius XM Urban View. He's the host of Connecting the Dots with Dr. Wilmer Leon on this Wednesday, July 16th, 2025. We're grateful to have him as our guest. Dr. Leon, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate, as always, the invitation. Thank you.
Listen, I want to share with you guys just a little inside scoop on my experience of 17 years in Congress. First of all, when a big issue came before the Black Caucus, we discussed it over chicken and greens on Wednesdays. That's when the Black Caucus comes together at our weekly lunch. Then we discuss that we need a meeting with the president, no matter who the president is. Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, the presidents that I had the opportunity to serve with. Then there's a big debate in the Black Caucus about the delegation that should go to the White House to meet with the president. Almost always concluding that we can't find the messenger, and therefore the whole Black Caucus has to go. And then we all go to the White House and meet in the Situation Room or in the room of the cabinet. Who sits at the table is always one of the pre-discussion points, and who's on the left and right-hand sides of the president before we get there. And that's if we get the chance to sit down. Because when I was there, The first 15 minutes were spent on selfies. Everybody had something privately that they wanted to whisper to the president because they couldn't get to the president without the group. They couldn't go on their own. And we resisted the idea that any one of us should go to meet with the president of the United States without the group, because we didn't care or trust in each other enough to believe that the issues we sent them there to talk about are the issues that are going to be talked about when they get there. That's what I meant when I was going to the art of the hustle, Dr. Yuri, that Dr. Leon was talking about. And then after that, everyone's gotten their selfie. The president is running out of time. Someone comes in the office eventually. We say, we want to talk about the Voting Rights Act. Well, you know, I put the Attorney General on that. I put somebody on that. And usually the president of the United States, too busy, has to go. Then we come out, have a little press conference. Some of us very angry at the idea that we did not get a chance to substantively discuss what was at stake in decisions made at the Justice Department and whether or not the Justice Department was actually going to defend the Voting Rights Act of 1965. That happened more often than not when I was there. Now, I say that because Dr. Leon is not too far off about the optics of what it means to be there. And I've been around enough presidents and enough important people in my life that I really don't see the star. I'm not starstruck by it. It doesn't do anything for me. It's like I come in there to talk about what needs to be talked about, straight face, grown ass man, making sense as best I can possibly make sense, but I'm not mealy mouth about it. I say all of that to say, when I think about the drawing of these districts, when I think about who represents the legitimate interests of Black Americans, not only in the federal legislature, but also in state legislatures, everything that glitters is not gold. And it has been an uphill struggle to have people like John Lewis who could stand toe to toe with these people and have honest, serious, and determined conversations. Dr. Leon, some final thoughts on what I just said, but also some final thoughts on what you might believe to be hope for the hour.
Very quickly, one, in all that you just laid out, you never mentioned the CBC speaking to the people. When was the last time you saw those? I think it's 62 members now standing on the steps of Congress in front of a microphone, articulating something of substance to the people. Last time I saw it was never. Three things quickly. One, so people say, okay, Wilmer, so what do we do? First of all, everybody listening, what are the three key issues that are important to you and your family? Four things. Two, who in your sphere of influence can you get on board with those issues? Three, what are you reading relative to those issues so that you can put together some type of plan in your space to move the issue forward? And then fourth, who are you calling in terms of your elected representatives to articulate those issues to those people?
That's a forward plan. Dr. Yuri, a word of hope.
Just here's listen, Dr. Wilmer Leon has just kind of laid it out. There's a passage that we often take out of context. In Proverbs, a righteous person falls 7 times and gets back up again. When you look at the original language, it actually means a righteous person committed to right outcomes. When they are made to feel inferior, they don't stay in the place of inferiority. And so part of the design of having a righteous cause is tapping into righteous resilience. And so this is not the season to get down about what we see. It's about to get serious about what we want. And the way we do it is when we're made to feel inferior and told that somehow or other we don't belong. First thing you do is sit up. When you sit up, get up. Once you get up, wise up. And once you wise up and understand the game, rise up and play to win.
My very special guest in this hour has been Dr. Wilmer Leon and Dr. Todd Yuri. Gentlemen, I am so grateful that you spent this time with us.
I just like hanging out with smart people.
Dr. Leon, I hope you'll come back anytime that you'd like.
Every time you invite me, I will call, especially if I get a chance to sit around and listen to Attorney and Reverend Yuri, because if I had his hand, I'd throw in my feet.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank KBLA Talk 1580, Tavis Smiley, and the entire KBLA Talk 1580 team for allowing us this platform and this opportunity to share the depth and the breadth of what we're feeling, the depth and breadth of what we're experiencing, and the depth and breadth of where we think the nation should be going every day, right here at KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Until tomorrow.
KBLA 1580